All right, welcome back and good evening, everyone. It's time for us to look at the Kyoto Gion Open round 5 game. So, day 2 finished really well. This is now round 5 is the first game of the third day, the final day. In the second day, I got 1.5 points out of 2, so I was really happy to be on a 2.5 out of 4 positive score, and I was looking to finish at least in that direction. So, I really wanted to make the most of my chance in this game as well. So in this game, I had the white pieces. I was facing Fujisawa-san. He is also Japanese here, local, and he's actually the owner, director, or all of the above of the Nagoya Chess Club. So it was really nice to see him come over and play with us in Kyoto as well. So let's get into it then. I started with d4. If it ain't broke, why fix it? I've been playing d4 the entire tournament, and I decided let's just go ahead with that. d5, I played c4, the Queen's Gambit. I did consider another move order, but I figured let's just stick with what we do. And he played the Gambit accepted, so he took DC. And I'm. It's not that I'm not a fan of this, but there is one or two variations here that I'm not the biggest fan of. So the last time I faced this in a serious game, I remember I actually played e3. Just to be really solid, defend the d4 pawn, just trying to get that pawn back immediately and just develop. And this is a little bit more passive, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But when I think about what I'm trying to play, the way I play the Catalan I've played in this tournament so far, e4 just makes the most sense. You've vacated that square. I can now take a broad center. So thank you very much. I have all the space. Let's see what you do. And they played one of the best moves, the main line immediately, e5. And to my horror, I don't remember what the best move is. I know now, in hindsight, I know what the move is that I should be playing here. But at the time, I kind of couldn't remember what the best move is. It's either pushing the pawn or it's knight f3, I thought. If I do play knight f3, I was unsure what happens after they pin my bishop, so I was a little bit cautious of this. But I'm also not sure if pushing is really correct. And obviously you don't want to take because then they just trade queens and their upper pawn and you can't castle and it's just what are you playing for at that point? So I decided to push. And this is not losing by any means, but it's just not the best move for white. So after pushing, they brought out their kingside knight, and again I had a few ideas. I could try and block. I can try and pin their knight. I can try and develop my knight to oppose theirs in the middle. But I'm aware that it might get pinned in return as well. I was considering just taking and then maybe I sack this, but then maybe I can bring my queen out. So actually on move 4, I'm already starting to calculate because I don't remember exactly what the theory is here, so I'm basically on my own. After a few minutes of thinking, I decided I'm just going to play my knight up and we'll see what happens. Um, After I played it, I thought, oh, wait, but there was that pin again, right? What happens if that happens? And actually, while I was going through that again, Black played it. So my immediate reaction was, oh, okay, now we have to keep on thinking. And my second reaction was, hey, wait a minute. So I don't know if you've spotted it, but one of the advantages of pushing d5 is that I take away the natural square for the queenside knight for black. And so after I play queen a4, this gets in a check and it attacks the bishop. What black wants to play is knight c6, blocking my queen, defending the bishop. However, I now have a pawn looking straight at that square, and so this loses the piece. So black took a long think here, and I also took a long think. I played the queen a4 check very quickly after I saw it because I figured, oh, hang on, that's got to be it. And at the very least, I'm in a position where I'm going to put black on the back foot. And while they figure out their best move, I can figure out if this is going to be a piece trade or an actual piece up or what exactly the situation is. And actually, the longer I looked at it, the more I realized that this has got to be a piece up. So black has to block the pin or move their king. They're not going to move their king, right? So they can obviously block the pin, but then I just take the bishop. There is obviously also the move where they can push up their pawn, but again, I can just take the bishop. So the only remove that makes any sense is to jump the knight in somewhere, and ideally you jump the knight in to protect the bishop, because then after I take, at least you can take my knight as well and ruin my pawn structure a bit. And then the next question is, do I still have defense on my e4 pawn, or is my e4 pawn going to fall? And if it does, because I'm moving my queen and my knights around, right? So I'm not really developing. My king can't castle. So does that create a risk to me, or is it just a clean advantage? So a lot of thinking went on here. We were playing on board, maybe board 7 at this point, I think. So we're on the upper half of the boards. We have a few players coming past now and then to have a look. Obviously, everyone knows him, and some of the people also know me as well. And eventually, the move I thought they had to play, Black did play, Knight C6, and it was back on me. So I had two thoughts. The first thought was, yes! The second thought was, should I take immediately or should I try something else? So, taking immediately, obviously, I win the piece. That's what I've been looking at the whole time. But I also thought, what if I pin that knight first? So, after I do anything, black is obviously going to take with this bishop just to liquidate it, just to isolate my pawn, well, just to get my b pawn onto the c file. And then after that, maybe they'll try break the pin or something. But this move is definitely happening as soon as they feel like the bishop has to get taken care of, because that at least allows the knight to no longer have to stay there to protect the bishop, because the bishop is still technically hanging, right, as soon as I get rid of the knight. So I did consider this for quite a bit, but in the end, I couldn't quite figure out if it's really good, and I figured if you get given a gift on move 4, what is it, move 4 in the opening, you definitely take it. So I just took the knight. I said, thank you very much. I know you're going to take my knight, and then you're probably going to take my pawn. But although I have isolated pawns, you've got 3 isolated pawns on the c file after this. So they did take my knight, I take back, they did take my pawn. And then look at this. So black not only has a piece that's been, has lost a piece, but they also have this pawn structure versus this. So although they've technically gained pawns, I mean it's trash. It's really really bad. Currently, I can't defend my e pawn, so they might even gain an additional pawn if I don't defend it. But this is obviously a terrible position for black to be in. And so my thinking now is I can take this pawn, I can take this pawn, or I can do something else. Both of those queen moves defend my e4 pawn, which I felt was quite important, because if that knight jumps in, my king is way in the middle, things can get dangerous quickly. The other thought I also had was black obviously wants to castle, and I've got all of this situation happening here, so if they castle, things might get even more dangerous for me, because again, my king is sitting way out in the open. It currently can't go anywhere. I need 3 moves to be able to get these minor pieces out and get it to safety. So what I decided to do was not to take and let them push my queen around, because I think one of the only ways that black really gets some counterplay in this kind of position is if I start taking pawns greedily and giving them chances to develop pieces with tempi against my queen. I don't want to move those pawns. They're doing absolutely nothing on the board. I found a move that I felt very, very comfortable with, bishop a3. Basically, this feels like a tempo win for me. The reason is they can't castle. So I get one of my light square bishop. Sorry, apologies. I get one of my minor pieces out. And black has to find some other move because they cannot move their king to safety just yet. So whatever they do, at least I know that I haven't lost the tempo getting my king to safety, and I might even have this rook t1 getting straight onto their queen. Amazingly, well, my queen's also defending the square, but my king might even be able to help launch a serious attack against my opponent, even though it's still completely undeveloped here on the king side. So bishop a3 on the board. I felt very good about this. Bishop d7. This is a clear one. So with this, they're going to push their pawn. They're going to attack my queen. Maybe I'm going to go take this first c pawn, but then my bishop can't quite stop their king from castling. So maybe they castle, and then after that, we continue. So if I don't know, let's just waste the move. They do here. Maybe I go here. Then they castle. Maybe I take the other pawn, or I do something else. So I mean that seemed fine for me, but I'm also really aware that I'm not looking to lose time against my opponent's moves. I really prefer to just make things happen quickly for my development. That's really the key right now. So I decide I'm just going to take this pawn. And I even had a look here that if they take with their knight, maybe I can sack and I can get into this position. Given that I'm a piece up against an opponent who I thought might be quite strong, and well practiced. In practice versus me who hasn't really played proper OTB in a long time. I really don't want to just liquidate everything into a drawn end game for some silly reason, but within reason, I definitely think that liquidating some of the pieces off the board gives me a better chance of solidifying and consolidating my advantage. So I considered a line like this, for instance. The other thing is that if they push now, my first thinking, and they did push, was maybe I'll just drop back. I'll defend the spawn. I'll defend the spawn. Then I can move my knight off the castle. I can castle. I'm a move behind, but I have no serious problems. However, after they pushed their pawn, I realized, hey, wait a minute, I can do this. And the reason why I didn't want to do queen c2 anymore is because in this position, they can play bishop c6. Now they're double attacking my pawn. Their bishop is getting very active. And this is basically what I've been trying to avoid. I don't want to give black chances to push my queen around, to gain tempi and gain activity for the piece that I've won. Because to win the piece, I had to push a pawn twice, then I had to take with the pawn, whereas they've been moving their minor pieces and getting their king ready to castle. And if I'm up a piece, but it ends up being a piece that's sitting on back rank, probably it's not going to help much. So I decided I'm actually just going to oppose this knight square bishop right away. If they take it, I take back. Then they have to block again. Maybe they block with their queen or their knight. I assume they would block with their knight, by the way, because in this situation they would take and then that would be really bad for them. Apologies. Um, that's a different line, but I did think that they would end up blocking with their knight. But after I played my bishop up to b5, they actually just decided, all right, I'm going to castle, get my king to safety. And again, I think that's basically what black has to try and do here, right? They have to try and get their king to safety. The only real advantage they have is the fact that they've moved more of their pieces off the back rank, although they've lost one of those. So making activity, making threats, making things happen with the pieces they have is the way that I would have played if I was black. However, now given that they've given me a chance to oppose the light square bishop, the previous move, I cannot trade off another piece. I did consider, for instance, moving my rook over, but after they take and take, then they can take again, and I take and they take, then I'm trading off, but I'm not so sure if this really looks so good for me. I didn't really like this position, for instance. Um, I don't know, maybe they take here, and then I take with check, and then they take back with something. They have to take with their rook, apologies. Um, because here comes a check that might be nasty. This is probably fine, but didn't I just lose a piece? So this is the kind of thing that I was really, really worried about, where you feel like things are going really well and you start getting a little bit sloppy, and all of a sudden, poof, your advantage is gone. So I decided I'm just going to take that light square bishop. If they take with the queen, I'm even happy to take the queens off the board. Queens are one of the best ways to get counterplay, and without queens, this game becomes a lot more slow. So I expected them, they will take with the knight, they're defending this pawn as well. And although they don't really have any immediate way to threaten a lot of things, they can probably jump their knight out to b6, block the file in case they really wanted to, but also just push my queen away. So I was a bit surprised when they ended up taking with their queen. And so what did I just say? I said that the queens are the best way for the counterplay, so how about no queens? That means good for me. And then after they took back, I'm now up a clear-minded piece for a single pawn. Um, all those c-file pawns are isolated and not useless, but they're not so mobile. They're not so easy to make use of. And without the queens, there's no rush for me to immediately castle at any speed, right? I might even, in a certain version, just put my king on e2 if I have enough time, because my king is obviously going to be part of the game going forward. So after this, I decided I'm going to bring my knight out here. The reason with this is I was eventually expecting I'm probably going to have to play f3 to defend this pawn. And then I was hoping that I could find time to bring my knight around, somewhere else, maybe over here. I didn't specifically want to put it here because if I do this and then they attack it, then I can take this pawn, they can take this pawn, but this pawn is also hanging. My king is in the middle. I feel a little bit uncomfortable about this, but actually it's not that bad. So I brought my knight out this way, and in this case they put their F rook over to the D file. So I can see, they've got some space they want to play in. Obviously, they want to get on these files faster. Black is down a piece. Black is looking for activity. Black is looking to take control of something. If, for instance, they can get me to take and connect some of these pawns again, maybe they can create a passer in some way. I might have to sack a piece for it in some situations. And over here now, I was thought, well, okay, I can castle, everything's safe. However, the engine says castling this way is better. Unfortunately, I castled this way. It's not losing by any degree, but this just immediately opposes, brings my king into close contact with this weak pawn that needs to be defended, and it's just a way better activating move. I have one rook immediately over, I have the king immediately over, whereas compared to what I did, neither of my rooks are anyway specifically special, and my king is way over on g1, unrelated to anything happening right now. So yeah, not the best move, but it's acceptable. Alright, knight goes out, I defend the way I'd expected to defend, and now I'm thinking maybe I can push this pawn up, and maybe I can jump my knight in here. I can oppose, I can try and take one of those pawns. If I take in whichever way, then I have a protected passer. So that's looking pretty good. But black doesn't want to give me any time, and they really infiltrate with their other rook. I'm not sure if they want to come over here or over here with their back rook, but obviously now my knight is hanging. And I didn't know if I should defend it, in which way I should defend it. And I got a little bit nervous now. And for the next, say, let's say 10 moves or so, I'm getting more and more nervous because I'm a piece up. I'm clearly better. I have no idea how to win this position. There's no direct plan that tells me, oh, okay, just do this and then you can trade a rook and then you're fine. So I defended, they pushed their pawn forward, blocking me from being able to push my pawn and jump my knight. Very nice move. Also taking it away from my bishop so I can't grab it. And I decided, okay, cool. So, trade. If you trade with me, basically the game's over. A single rook is definitely not going to be able to infiltrate sufficiently. But they obviously very smartly decide not to. D3. Now that pawn is weak, so I just jump my rook over there. Great play, Flippy. You've got both rooks sitting by two isolated pawns that can't go anywhere. That's very active. Well done. The engine actually approves of what I've done, but I honestly, in the moment, felt so embarrassed. Clearly, this is not the way I'm supposed to play this position, but I couldn't find any better moves. Anyway, so me and my passive pawn sat and wait for the next move. Black decides to drop the knight back. They're going to bring the knight into the game somewhere here. The easiest way I could see that happening is something like this. Just to put more pressure on this pawn, and then obviously if I defend here, they can take my bishop. If I defend here, they can push some of these pawns down. So my darks for bishop, although it felt very smart at the start, is also kind of just not very active. I have an extra minor piece, but it doesn't feel like it's doing much. Alright, so I'm going to run my king over, and then I'm actually just going to oppose again and be like, well, take something. I want to just like get that rook off. So here comes the rook after the knight. I keep running my king. Other rook over. Okay, so other rook over is good because after I oppose, they can take twice currently because there's nothing there. And even if not, at some point I could have taken, they take back with their pawn, I have to move, they could have then defended and tried to push this pawn across as well. So there's a few ways black can try and make something happen. Alright, so here comes my knight now. I can see this knight is coming. I decide I'm just going to defend it immediately because knight on g3 is doing absolutely nothing, and going forward also brings me very little value. So yeah, it's defended. I've got one probably okay piece, but I'm a little bit unsure what to do with that bishop. I've got one more rook to be putting somewhere, and I've got a big problem because I don't exactly know what to do. There are very versions of this where I run my rooks up the b file. Apologies. I run my books up the b file, and in response, black mates me on the back rank. And when I saw those variations, I had tiny heart attacks. I can't lose this position. I want to win. I need to win. I'm up a clear piece. I can't find a way to win and to break through and just consolidate my advantage. F5, not what I expected. So at this point, I really thought the knight was going to come, but since it's already double defended, I understand that they were obviously looking for some other way to make progress here. And I did consider taking, but I was really worried that in some way, maybe things just start falling apart. Maybe the other rook comes in, and this pawn's already weak, and I can't defend it with anything. So I decided not to take. I decided to just push this to pull this rook back, um, because now I'm going to oppose. Now I've got both rooks lined up on the d1 file. This pawn, if it falls with the rook, is going to be falling for an exchange, so that's good for me. So even if they jump their knight in now and I oppose and they take there, I take there with check. Everything's really good for me in this case. So I'm just trying to find a way to break this situation up. They decided to play f4, and I'm not sure why they did that. I think they were doing that to take this square away from my knight, so that if I jumped my knight somewhere, if they try to pin it, I can't. If I move it, I can't jump my knight anywhere useful. And I think this again starts to talk about that situation where I get mated on my own back rank because I can't figure out how to use my additional piece. But the engine says that actually you should take. It's far better for you. Although it's not actually a major advantage. All right. So now I have a plan. I'm going to start making use of this dark square bishop. I'm going to maybe take that pawn, but I'm actually also just thinking to drop it all the way back here somewhere, just to be useful, just make something happen, to put it on a diagonal that actually matters in this game. And they say, yeah, okay, cool, move your dark square bishop. I say, thank you, I'll take that pawn. And then they blocked it off, and I went, oh, did I just do a massive mistake? Am I about to lose? So obviously this knight's protecting this pawn. The knight's also king of that square. This square is taken by the rook. So after rook a8, my bishop falls. Thankfully, I didn't completely hallucinate. I've got rook b1. I did ab1 to protect the c-pawn still, and now I can play the bishop over, or if black would be so kind, I can play this. And then they have to trade with me because it's check versus their king. And then this pawn is weak, and it's just looking amazing for me. However, after I played the rook over, they decided to just attack my bishop, and I can put the bishop here, but then this happens, and that's not looking good. This is double attacked. This is then also attacked, and then this falls. So I don't know. Maybe I take here, they take here, I take here, they take here, here as an example. I'm just all around not the biggest fan of the situation. I'm probably still winning, but the fact that this rook is sitting here with this passed pawn in front of it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. If I take there and they take here, then I've actually just lost a piece, and now I'm up a pawn, and that's it. In a position where I have way less space, my king can't get out, and their king can slowly walk across the board. Maybe not there, but in some way it can get down here. So a little bit nervous, but I see I can put my bishop on the back rank here. I did also consider obviously checking, but if they play their king up, then this is hanging, this is doing nothing, and it's no longer helping me in the back. And this is where I'm starting to worry that maybe I take, and they start to check me on the back. So I just moved my bishop to the back rank. I am attacking this pawn as well, and if this falls, then maybe this pawn is weak, and also I have a bit more control over the situation in the middle. So with this move, black kind of gave up the pressure a little bit, and they moved their rook over to defend the pawn. And this was my chance. Here I go. So I have been looking at a few variations where if I take and they take back with the pawn, I jump my knight, and because their rook was on the file still, they push, which is both a check, and they take my rook, or they not my knight at that point. So I've been really nervous about when I can oppose properly and take, because I could have opposed earlier, but I couldn't actually take the rook. It was an empty threat. But after they moved their rook off the file, this is the best time. This is perfect. So they played g5. I think they were kind of reaching to find some counterplay, but I don't really care anymore. I can snap that rook off, and with this, the game is slowly coming to a conclusion. I can jump my knight back. There's no check here because there's nothing guarding the pawn after it checks. And after they take my pawn, I just come up straight. This pawn's under attack, this knight's under attack, this pawn's defended. They only have one move. And I think at that point, what was I going to do? I think I was actually just going to take. Yeah, just straight take it, and then I was attacking some more pawns. Oh, not this way, because that's a massive disaster. I was going to take this way, obviously. But with that, I would just be up the piece, and we're equal in pawns, and my king is no longer stuck. They have no more coordinated rooks. So after I found this continuation and rook b3, my opponent called it, and I got my full point. I was incredibly excited. I was so nervous during the game that I couldn't find the win, even though I basically got knight odds from the start. But that's just a lesson that I have to learn, in that when you know you're better, you still have to prove it. And if you can't remember how to do that, then that's your fault. So thank you very much for watching. This was fantastic. With this, then I was on 3.5 out of 5. Yeah, I was on 3.5 out of 5. Really, really good performance for me in my first OTB tournament back in the long time. And I was walking into the last round to face my final boss. So please look forward to that video. I'm very excited to reveal who I played. And I hope that even if you don't know who that person is, maybe you can go figure it out and find them afterwards. All right, so thank you very much and see you next time. Ciao.